Afternoon. Today we'll be talking about sexual harassment and our sexual harassment policy. First thing we need to do is define it, and the EEOC defines sexual harassment as unwelcome sexual advances, requests, or sexual favors, whether that is verbal or physical contact. And what it's doing is it's making the conditions for the victim making the conditions very hostile. You could be intimidating the person into sexual favors in order to advance your career or just having an all around offensive environment. We don't want to have sexual comments in the office or the workplace or around students. So that's the EEOC definition of sexual harassment. So we have our harassment types. We have quid pro quo, which is you give me sexual favors and I give you bonuses, preferential schedules, things of that nature. The second type is verbal and nonverbal. So you can have verbal harassment where you are communicating with a fellow teacher or principal and making comments of a sexual nature, or it could be towards a student. Also, you have your nonverbal, whether you're looking at somebody very in a sexual way or you're making noises or sounds or catcalling. We also have physical, where you're brushing up against somebody or unwanted touching, hugs that are lingering too long, or taps or touches in places that there shouldn't be. And you have the hostile work environment. So you're creating a work environment where people don't want to be in because of the harassment that is going on, whether it's from colleague to colleague, bosses to colleagues, or bosses to subordinates, or from teacher to student. And we want to make sure there's no retaliation. So if an advance is made and the victim does not acknowledge the advancement. We don't want to have any retaliation from anybody, whether that is superior in the position of the victim. We also have unwelcomeness, and I felt like it was important to define what unwelcomeness is. So if you haven't make an advance or you say something to somebody, even although it's inappropriate in the workplace, but they welcome the advance, or you make a comment about them and they have no issues with it, even though it's not suitable for the workplace. Um, I just think we have to understand what welcome versus unwelcomeness is. Now, we also have to understand it's from the victim's perspective. If the harasser is out here making comments and they perceive that it's welcome, but the victim does not, we have to take the victim's perspective, not the harasser. Um, and there was been examples with harasser states that there was no objection from the victim, but again, the victim may be a subordinate and may feel like their job could be on the line if they do show any forms of not wanting the advancement. And then the big key is the power differential. So if it's a boss to a subordinate, depending on how far that boss goes up, there may be more and more repercussions based on that. Because again, the victim may feel that if they deny the sexual advances of a superior, they may be putting their job on the line of their career. And unwelcomeness is presumed by the victim. It is not the harasser. The victim holds the power. So we have sexual words and actions. So when we talk about sexual words, when you're talking about things that you should not be saying at work, that is something that we're going to talk about sexual words. When you talk about actions, whether it's sexual assault or hitting physically or physically trying to take advantage of somebody, we're going to use the federal and state laws for that. Now, when we get to sexual demands for better treatment or a threat of bad treatment, those also fall under sexual harassment. We don't want, again, quid pro quo, where if you give me something sexual, I'll do something better for you for your job. And we also don't want where if we demand something sexual, you could have negative treatment at work. When we go down to physical, where in actions, touching, brushing up against people, pinching them, touching them unwantedly, that is something that is undesirable in the workplace. Also, having too close a proximity. Again, that is from the victim standpoint. The harasser may not think their proximity is too close, but again, you have to realize that if you're making somebody uncomfortable, you have to be aware of that. And then we don't want to display or show explicit images, have it up on your phone or on your computer screen where somebody else sees it, because also it could be the person you're talking to or showing the image to may not be affected by it, but a bystander walking by may see it and feel like that's unwanted and end up catching yourself in a sexual harassment case. So when we have damages, you have to provide one of the key elements of sexual harassment, whether it's explicit or implied, whether it is a statement that is said directly to the person or it's implied. Uh, we don't want that to be something that's a condition of their job, and we don't want it to interfere with their work performance. Also, we don't want intimidation that creates hostile working environments. So I believe an effective policy demonstrates some key points. We have to understand that, again, perspective of the victim. We have to take what the victim states as them feeling uncomfortable. We also in the policy have to define types of sexual harassment, but it's not limited to just the examples given in our policy. We have to have great reporting procedures. We have to make sure that at any time a student or staff member can go to HR and report sexual harassment, and they'll be protected from any type of retaliation from their superiors. And we have to have immediate action. It can't be something where we sit on our hands and we wait and we hope that it blows over or disappears. We have to uh, take action immediately, and we have to be impartial. We can't show favoritism to a superior or to a victim. We have to make sure we get all the facts of the case before we move forward. Now, the policy that I propose is one, you have to provide a safe, respectful environment free of sexual harassment or sexual advances. So I feel the next key is that we have to define what sexual harassment is in our policy. So I define it as unwelcome sexual advances. We don't want to conduct anything of visual conduct of sexual nature because that creates a hostile environment. We don't want to be intimidating or offensive. Some examples would be inappropriate touching, jokes or comments, uh, showing sexual conduct or, excuse me, sexual content. We also want to have good reporting. We want to be able to report to our supervisor. If our supervisor is the one who is our harasser, we want to be able to go above them to report, or any channel. If it's a student, they should be able to tell a teacher or a principal or their counselor, and we go through and we take it seriously and we conduct an investigation. We need to have consequences based on the type of conduct, that not limited to termination or expulsion. So termination if it's a teacher or faculty member, and expulsion if it's student peer-to-peer harassment. And we have to have regular training. We have to train our staff annually, if not more, on what constitutes sexual harassment, how to see or notice sexual harassment if it's coming, if we see it happening with our students, so that we may put those complaints uh, on file and that we can investigate those complaints. Thank you.